Right. Hi, this is Matthew Connolly. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Okay, I am 51 years old. I am married to a delightful person named Sammy, um, and I reside in Albuquerque, New Mexico, um, where I am a litigation attorney. I am part owner of a small law firm with a total of 12 lawyers, and we have a total of 20 employees.
Awesome. How did you get into this profession?
So I started, as you personally know, I went to Syracuse University after graduating a public high school in Middletown, Connecticut. I went to Syracuse in order to study broadcast journalism. In addition to doing coursework, I did extracurricular work on 2 radio stations and the closed circuit TV channel, and that really felt like work. It didn't furnish the enjoyment I sought. So I switched my areas of study to political science and political philosophy. And in my junior year, I took a course through political science called constitutional law. And there were about 100 students in the class, and I was one of 8 selected to participate in a moot court presentation during which we learned basic legal research techniques with a mentor who was a law student at Syracuse Law School. And we also prepared written briefs on a First Amendment case involving Andrea Dworkin against Hustler magazine that was at that time pending in front of the United States Supreme Court. And that project, which was an extra project. It wasn't even like, I think I had to not write one of the 4 papers or something, and that's all I got out of it. And it swallowed my whole semester. But it culminated in an oral argument presented to 3 real-life judges who were pretending to play the role of the United States Supreme Court. And so the 8 of us, there was 2 groups of 4, and we were each in pairs. And there were 2 different cases, and so the 4 of us that were working on the Andrea Dworkin case did a presentation on a random Tuesday night or something, and this was all sort of an extra project, but I loved every single minute of it, and so at that point I knew I wanted to be a litigation attorney.
Did you get any support from your professors as well, or whoever, kind of put you into this project, I guess?
The professor, he had done it before, and so there was sort of an outline of how the project worked, and of course, he was the supervisor over the 2 law students that helped the 2-person team of undergraduate students, and it was a fairly limited case. It wasn't, it was a First Amendment case, which can be really expansive, but the professor was involved in the process too, and gave us feedback on our draft briefs and the initial project, in addition to having the law students working as sort of teaching assistants as well.
Yeah. So as we know, being a lawyer, you do go to university first, but then you do go to law school. So as the typical question is there any other education required for your job, or recertifications or law school?
Sure. I applied to something like a dozen law schools, and I got into a few of them. I selected Boston College Law School in Newton, Massachusetts, and I did 3 years there and obtained a Juris Doctor degree. And then I had to pass a bar exam in order to become a licensed attorney.
Yeah. Was there any, so as you said, that was the moment that you had at Syracuse, that you knew that this was the career you wanted when you were working on that project? You just felt you were in the right place. Am I right with that? Or was there a moment in your day-to-day career where you're like, yeah, I made the right decision?
I don't know. There's mostly days where I'm like, really, why do I do this for a living? But I think everybody feels that way. But yeah, I mean, I haven't deviated from it. I've still been a litigation attorney for 25 years.
Yeah. So how could you describe it's like to start out in the field? Like, what is it like? You're fresh out of law school. Give us a rundown.
Okay, so I guess the interesting thing about the law is that there are many little sub-careers inside of it. And I think that's true for a lot of different industries. So it's just about finding whatever, not specialty so much as just, but a subset of the career. So for instance, like when I started, I've had 3 separate careers within my career as a litigation attorney. Mm-hmm. I started as a state employee working for the New Mexico Public Defender Department, mostly because I knew that would give me a lot of opportunities to try cases in court. And I started in 1994 there, and my starting salary was $28,800 a year. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a little under 4 years, and then I borrowed some money and hung a shingle. Mm-hmm. I opened up my own office, Matthew Connolly, attorney at law, and I was a private attorney for hire by private citizens. Mostly I still did criminal cases, and did that for several years. And then in 2004, I was tired of the criminal business and decided to take my litigation skills and go to work for a civil litigation defense firm. And I've been a partner there since 2009. So it's, there's little subsets of my career that have allowed things to remain, fresh and new and interesting, I guess.
Yeah, always. And so, did you find, I know you've told me this before and told my parents this before, that certain areas of the United States, are more apt to need and have a higher demand of attorneys, especially in different parts. Was that tough for you moving away?
No, it wasn't tough for me to move away. But I've always been a fairly adventurous bloke, so I just saw it as a new adventure, and if it didn't pan out, I could always turn around and go home.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
So I was an exchange student when I was 15 years old, so I've always been a bit on the adventurous side in terms of travel.
Yeah, of course. So walk us.
Hang on one second.
Alrighty, walk us through.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, no worries. Walk us through a day in your life.
This is the hard question that I didn't really prepare for, because that's hard to say. My days can be very, very different, depending on what's going on. So, like one day I'll just have a bunch of paperwork to do. Mm-hmm. And the
paperwork.
So it could be just be like writing a brief or responding to email. Most of my life is responding to email, to be honest with you. And that can get a bit cloying. But sometimes it leads to an exciting task here where I've got to write something or file a response to or write a letter in response to some letter that somebody has written me, making certain demands in a case that we have a dispute over. And so that takes up a lot of my day. I hate to bring up COVID because it's not normal, but right now I don't really leave my dining room, where I have everything set up. But that's been an abnormal circumstance since mid-March of 2020. Before that, I get up in the morning and work out and then go to the office and, do all this work at my computer, but a lot of it is in an office setting. On a particular day, I might have a court appearance where I have to present something or present my response to something that the other side has filed, and appear and argue in front of a judge, where the judge gives each side its turn, and sort of similar to what you see on TV, but a lot more boring and a lot slower.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so what would you say, is there a most rewarding part of your job? What makes you proud that you're a lawyer, if there is anything?
That's kind of a loaded question. Let's see. I guess it's oftentimes it's helping somebody with their biggest problem. If a problem lands somebody up in a court dispute in litigation, then that's oftentimes their biggest stress. And it was true probably more so when I was handling criminal work, because they were facing a loss of liberty. But even now, where it's about a dispute that ultimately is going to be costly to reputation or costly to money or what have you, it's a very stressful circumstance. And I do a fair amount of medical malpractice defense. And, this is a doctor is having a claim made against them that they professionally did something wrong, which attacks their self-esteem and attacks, their professional status and all of that. So yeah, I guess it would be helping somebody with what is their most challenging event that's going on in their lives and helping them through that. So I'll go with that.
Yeah. So is there anything necessarily challenging to you? Would you say, in that case, would it be stress upon you for, assisting these people who are under such high stress circumstances?
I don't think that's the most challenging part. I mean, it's always a challenge because you're undertaking and taking on people's problems for them in a lot of ways. But I've learned over the years that I'm not responsible for the circumstance that they're in. I am responsible for doing the best job that I can in managing that circumstance. The most challenging part of my job right now is probably being a boss and running a business. Because in law school, they teach us contracts and they teach us torts and they teach us legal interpretation, but they don't teach us how do you manage people. They don't teach us how do you manage people, and they don't teach us, how to do gross receipts taxes and how to run a business and all that. So that's actually it's not something that I have any specific training or competence in, and as a result, I'm learning on the job, and have always been learning on the job since I left state employment.
So if a teenager or a high schooler was looking to become a lawyer, whether it be criminal or litigation or civil, is there any advice you would have for them?
For a teenager, pay attention in school, I guess. But actually, my first thing is do something else. And I'm only half joking. This is not an easy job, and it's much less respected than it once was. And there's a lot more respected gigs out there. But if you're drawn to it the way that I was drawn to it, for litigation, more specifically, I would say definitely become comfortable as a public speaker. And whether it's doing in-class presentations in high school or PowerPoint facilitated stuff. When I was coming up, they had something called Toastmasters, which was just practicing public speaking, and it was just a club where you'd give a speech on things. And it was just getting comfortable with the process of being a public speaker. That it could even be doing a YouTube channel presenting, this is how I bake cookies. There is a lot more available to somebody who's a teenager now in terms of practicing how to be a public speaker. And for litigation, that's something that you can't have enough training in. And it's a comfort level. And it would also be of assistance to find out if it feels like my radio station job did and it feels like work, then maybe litigation's not for you. And in terms of just generally being a lawyer, I would say take a lot of English classes, a lot of communications courses, and become very strong in terms of being able to write clearly and effectively, because that's the vast majority of my job.
Awesome.
Oh, and then finally, go to the least expensive accredited college and university you can find. Because a good legal education can be obtained by any strong student who wants it from any institution. And it really shouldn't create six-figure debt. I've seen weak lawyers from Ivy League schools, and I have seen outstanding lawyers who obtained all 7 of their years after high school at public colleges using scholarships and grants. And so I'd say get out of school with as little debt as possible. It leaves a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. What were your thoughts, just like another question that's going to be pressing for people who would want to be lawyers is the LSATs and the bar test, can you go into depth about, your perspective, your thoughts on them?
So I had a fairly arrogant attitude as a teenager, and I took my LSAT and I winged it, and did fairly well because I was a sharp dude. What my advice would be is invest in the LSAT, because it's a test with tricks that can be taught, and the same is true of SATs and ACTs as well. It's an extra expense and it's extra time, but those tests have methods that a better score can be obtained with a little bit of training on the methods. And there are competitors out there who are going to compete for a spot at the school that somebody wants to go to, who have taken those courses. And so if it's at all possible, get training in how to take the test, whether it's a Kaplan class or whatever those things are.
And the bar test?
The bar exam, there's all kinds of companies out there, and they all do, there's various companies. There's one called Barbary, but there's a whole bunch of different ones, and everybody takes those. There isn't anybody who misses an opportunity to take those. I don't know of anybody who's ever passed a bar exam, as long as I've been an attorney, who didn't have some degree of that kind of training, because in New Mexico it's a 3-day test. In a lot of states it's 2, and that's in addition to the ethics test. And so you gotta get training on how to take these tests. They're no joke.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Occupation Connection. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure to click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a good comment below.